Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And it seems you can't put a bad idea down. Although the SNP government have said they are not going to appeal the GRR Bill at the Supreme Court, that apparently is not the same as abandoning the bill. They, after all, have to keep the Greens on board. And so they are saying that they're not abandoning the bill. It will stay on the books, it will stay there ready to go, and that they're just waiting for a new government in Westminster, and then they can try again on the hope that the next Scottish minister, whoever it will be for Labour, won't apply Section 35. I think it's a good hope. There's a chance it may well go through. But you wonder why they are absolutely so desperate to push this through. It's unpopular with the people. It's not just their own supporters, but the whole of Scotland. It's causing them great divisions within the party. It's costing them support. And they're doing all this to kiss the ring of the Greens, who they don't really need. They're moving into the latter part of this Scottish government now, this tenure of government. To be honest, they're not going to get much more through anyway. Why risk everything over a deeply, deeply unpopular policy? There must be something completely broken within the SNP that they think that this is a good idea. But we'll take a look at it to see how they're so desperate to keep the extremists of the Greens in government. Here goes. So here we have the headline. The SNP won't drop the GRR bill as the Greens stay silent on the Butte House agreement. And it's exactly as I said it would happen. I said the threat of the Greens is the threat that they'll walk, but that when push comes to shove, they won't. And lo, it came to pass that the Greens didn't walk. Talking of walking, do please hit the subscribe button. YouTube's being a bit shady and it has unsubscribed people over the last couple of days. We've seen this. It rises, and it drops. When you check, nothing's come off the videos. It's them being unsubscribed. So do check your subscription. Make sure you are subscribed. And if you're yet to subscribe, bang, now's the time, because we need to get to 9,000 for Christmas. Really to shove it up because they don't like us because we're political. Anyway, confirmation of the dropped legal challenge has been made as Alistair Jack announces his government will be seeking a reimbursement for the cost of the case. So he did threaten it. Jack threatened it and he said, unless you abandon it, we're going to put the bill in. They have not abandoned it. He's putting the bill in. So the 230,000 that the SNP blew on a case they knew in advance they were going to lose, and now it's going to cost them nearly £400,000 because they went against their legal advice. Alibaba said, I'm not taking this to court unless the legal advice is that we can win, but I'm not publishing the legal advice, which means, of course, that the legal advice was you can't win. Because if the legal advice was you can win, he'd have damn well published that. And so £400,000 of taxpayer money wasted on a case they knew in advance they were going to lose. That to me smacks of wasted money. That smacks to me of misuse of public funds. And that, dear viewer, is a crime. Anyway, Social Justice Secretary and awful person Shirley-Anne has said the SNP will not be dropping the Gender Recognition Reform Bill despite their humiliating court loss, because they have to keep the Greens happy for some reason. These hate-filled extremists of the Greens, especially Maggot Chapman, the woman who wants to absolutely sexualise children and destroy children's futures for her own naked pleasure, I think. No other reason. She wants to see this bill there because she loves the idea of destruction, of removing normality, of removing decency from society, allowing grown men to expose themselves to young children in changing rooms. That's her kind of thing. And that's all of the Greens. They're all pushing this because they're all degenerate monsters, really, aren't they? And the SNP are too scared of them to say, look, the bill's had its chance, it's done, move on. No, Frady, in case they walk. They won't walk. They haven't walked. They're not going to walk. Anyway, the Scottish Government formally confirmed they will not be appealing the ruling that Alistair Jack was right to use a Section 35 order to block the reforms. The SNP minister said the controversial content of the bill should not be conflated with the failure of her government to enact the legislation, as she leaned on the backing from a majority of cross-party MSPs. because they're all scared. They all don't want to see us ists and phobes. Stand up for what's right and decent and put the clauses in there that it doesn't matter what you think you are. You can't have a grown man exposing himself to children, because that's what Maggot Chapman wants. The future of the Butte House Agreement was raised at Holyrood, however. Neither Miss Somerville or the only Green MSP to speak at the ministerial announcement, Maggot Chapman, made any attempt to put speculation on the red line issue to rest. Tory MSP Megan Gallagher said this whole debacle leaves the SNP's relationship with the Greens in tatters, and I'm wondering if the Greens will follow through on their threats to quit the government after the announcement today. And of course they won't. Of course they won't. Because you know why? Ka-ching! They like the money. They like the big fat seats with power. But most of all, they like the money. And they're enjoying it. They're never going to earn this much money again, are they? Because no one is going to employ them. Not at those sort of wages. They're all useless and stupid and filled with loathing and hatred of humankind. Earlier in the year, Greens leader Patrick Harvey said his party would not accept any Scottish government simply vetoing parts of the Butte House Agreement, which includes a commitment to challenge the UK government's veto of the GRR Bill. Well, they have, and they've lost, and they've dumped it. So go on then, Patrick. Show us what a big man you are. Show us that you're not just an empty piece of shit filled with bile and bollocks. Oh, wait, you're still sitting down. Don't see you walking out that door. Why are you still there, Patrick? Or are you just a nothing man? You're a straw man, aren't you? You're a little man in a big chair. That's all you are. Anyway, Ms Somerville said the GRR bill remained the government's policy, even though it can't be implemented yet because Tories. Now, the thing is, at this point, you need the Tory government to go on until February 2025. February 2025. As long as possible. That's like the last day when you can possibly have a general election. They need to drag themselves on to the very last day. Just simply to stop the SNP putting this bill in. It still gives them 18 months to get it afterwards, but hey, you can maybe slow things down and force a recommittee and things like that. Anyway, Ms Gallagher said it is beyond frustrating that the SNP are still intent on pursuing their deeply flawed gender self-ID policy, despite the Scottish public being opposed and ministers suffering a humiliating court defeat on it. This wasn't on the mandate. The people, if it were offered a choice, would say no, massively, 99%. If you're so confident that this is right, put it to the people. Show us your arguments. Make the argument that this is right. But you can't, can you? Which is why you've got to force it through against the wishes of the people, because of that tiny, tiny minority of degenerate, scared tossers in Holyrood. Shirley-Anne Somerville, she said, may have accepted that she'd be on the legal hiding to nothing, appealing the Court of Session verdict, but she also insisted the Nationalist Coalition will not be withdrawing the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, which means it could return to Parliament in a different form. And the SNP are more concerned about maintaining their toxic partnership with the extremist Greens than admitting they got this bill badly wrong and going back to the drawing board. The Equalities Minister said, we can see from the cross-party support for the bill they remain what the Parliament would like to see enacted. Well, the only reason there's a cross-party support is because a lot of people there don't want to be seen as ists and phobes. They're scared of the likes of Stonewall. But Stonewall now are little more than a terrorist organisation. They're organised crime. Give us money and I'll put a plaque on your wall, or we'll tell everyone how bad you are. Tell them, don't give a shit. Stonewall, F off, don't care. FRO, get her out of here. Anyway, she said it's impossible to see how progress can be made. Well, it can't at the moment, of course. Anyway, the SNP government will not waver. This is Shirley-Anne Somerville says the SNP government will not waver in their support for trans rights, but they have trans rights. Name me one right you, I, or someone over there has that a trans doesn't have, with the exception of going into a room where there are small children and exposing yourself. No, didn't think so. There we go. The SNP were also forced to apologise for withholding the content of the response by waiting until 4 minutes prior to the opening of business to send two MSPs. Tory Deputy Leader Miss Gallagher said Miss Somerville was discourteous, to which she said she was genuinely sorry. Not so sorry that she would pull the bill, though, eh? She said the Scottish Government chose to pursue this litigation in spite of the cost of the taxpayer. These resources would have been better spent addressing the priorities of the people of Scotland. such as growing the economy, cutting the waiting lists, and improving education. And yes, and it's been confirmed that the Alistair Jack confirmed that the bill for the Westminster's legal fees will be presented to Holyrood. They have to pay. It's the law. Well done, Shirley-Anne Somerville. Why are you so filled with bile and hate for women and children? You being a woman, you'd think, you'd want to be protected. But that's fine, Shirley. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until you go into a toilet somewhere. Then I'm just going to walk in and go, right, love. Oh, can I see your fanny, love? Oh, you can't do nothing. I'm a lady now. And there's nothing she can do. I'll get me bits out and wobble them. But they're lady bits now. You say, well, they're lady bits, love, you know what I mean? What can she do? She wants this. And she wants grown men waggling their bits in the faces of 9-year-old girls. All right, girls. Oh, yes. Look at my lady cock. That's what she is pushing. Sexualisation of children. All the time. We all know what the P stands for in SNP, don't we? And look at that. There's a face, unloved and unlovable, who just wants to destroy the world. No decency. They're all degenerate. They're all monsters. Coming up. Their obsession with this is rather worrying, isn't it? With all the things they do, with all the serious, the sexualisation of children, and then this massive obsession with gender rights, this pushing of trans rights and things. And yet the thing is, the trans have no rights more or less than anyone else. Their rights are already protected in law. But for some reason, they want to make this such an easy thing, and yet it will absolutely kill children. We know, we've seen that, the self-ending rate amongst children who get through this at an early stage is 10 times higher than normal. They want to utterly destroy an entire generation. And there's going to be massive court cases. The NHS is looking at maybe a £1 billion class action for all the terrible things they've done by transitioning children who were not trans. The Tavistock Clinic in London, the independent investigation found that of all the children that they transitioned, 97.5% of them should not have been transitioned. They were not gender dysphoric. 97.5. That is abuse on an industrial scale. And that is, again, what the SNP are doing. If there's any reason to abandon this degenerate party of perverts, predators and pedos, it's their treatment of children. Thank you very much for watching. Bit of a serious one for a Thursday, isn't it? Thanks very much for watching. I do hope it sort of opened your eyes on that, and you've got to fight against this, or you're lost. An entire generation is lost, but your civilization will fall. Anyway, thank you, and I will speak to you later. Bye.